The night on Korean 4 was colder than usual. Sharp winds moved through the narrow streets, carrying dust, trash, and the quiet whispers of creatures hiding in the dark. The old alien orphanage stood on a lonely hill, its walls cracked and its windows glowing with a sick, pale light. People in the town usually avoided this place, especially at night. They said strange things happened inside, things better left unspoken. Outside the iron gate, a small alien girl stood trembling. Her skin was a soft blue shade, marked with faint glowing lines that looked like tiny stars running across her arms. Her eyes were large and bright, filled with fear and confusion. She hugged herself tightly as she looked at the closed door behind her. Just a few minutes ago, she had been pushed out. Not gently, not with care. She had been thrown out. The caretaker, a tall alien with sharp eyes and colder emotions, had shouted at her, "You don't belong here. You are a failure. Leave now." His voice still echoed in her mind. She didn't understand what she did wrong. She didn't understand why they hated her. She only understood one thing. She was alone. The girl sat on the hard ground shivering. Her small legs hurt, and her stomach growled with hunger. She had no home to go to, no family, no one to call her own. Her glowing wrist tag, once her only identity, now felt like a curse. She touched it gently, hoping someone would come back for her. But no one did. The street was empty. The sky was dark. The universe felt huge and uncaring. A soft sound broke the silence. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, getting closer. The girl froze. The alley was dangerous at night. Strange creatures moved in the shadows. Some fed on fear, some fed on flesh. She looked around, searching for a place to hide. But there was nothing except broken boxes and trash. The footsteps stopped right behind her. She felt a chill run across her spine. Then a voice, deep, calm, and strangely warm, spoke. "Are you all right?" It was a human, a real human. Humans were rare on this planet. Most aliens found them strange. Too brave, too curious, too emotional. But this man looked nothing like the cruel caretakers. He had a tired face, but kind eyes. His coat was worn out from travel, and dust covered his boots. But he carried an aura of strength, silent, steady, and protective. He slowly knelt in front of the girl. "Hey, who did this to you?" The girl stared at him, unable to speak. She didn't know human language. She only knew fear. But his voice, it felt safe. Something inside her whispered to trust him. She lifted a trembling hand and pointed at the orphanage. The man's expression changed. His eyebrows tightened. His jaw clenched in anger. He looked at the building as if he knew something dark was hiding inside. "I knew it," he whispered under his breath. He gently touched her arm. "You're hurt." The girl flinched but didn't pull away. His touch wasn't like the cold hands of the caretakers. It felt warm. Human warm. He looked at her again, studying the glowing lines on her skin. Not with fear, not with disgust, but with worry. "What did they do to you?" he asked softly. The girl tried to speak, but only a small broken sound came out. Tears filled her eyes. She lowered her head, ashamed of her own weakness. The human's heart tightened. He hated seeing anyone suffer, especially a child. "It's okay," he said gently. "You don't have to talk." He took off his coat and wrapped it around her tiny body. She gasped at the warmth. It was the first kindness she had felt in a very long time. But then, something moved in the shadows behind them, a low mechanical hum. A glowing red light. The human's eyes widened. They're already looking for her. And in that moment, he realized this girl wasn't just thrown out. She was being hunted. The human quickly turned his head toward the red light glowing in the dark alley. The girl felt intense, and she instinctively pressed closer to his side. The humming sound grew louder, sharper, like metal wings cutting through the air. A drone, and not an ordinary one. This was a Class 4 search drone, cold, silent, and programmed to hunt without mercy. Its red sensor scanned the ground walls and trash as it floated toward them like a ghost. The human's heartbeat quickened. If this drone was here, then the orphanage was not simply a cruel place. It was hiding something much worse. And the girl. She was part of it. He looked down at her. She was trembling, hiding her glowing arms under his coat. She didn't understand the danger, but she felt it. Her small hands clutched the fabric tightly. "Stay close," the human whispered. He gently placed a protective arm around her and guided her into the deeper shadows, behind a stack of broken metal crates. The drone hovered nearby, scanning the area with sharp beams of red light. It beeped, searching for biological signatures. One wrong move and it would find them. The girl covered her mouth with both hands to keep from making a sound. The human held his breath. The drone paused, its sensor sweeping toward their hiding spot. Then suddenly, a loud noise echoed from the far end of the alley. 2 metal bins falling over. The drone instantly turned and rushed in that direction. The human exhaled in relief. That was close. He lifted the girl into his arms and whispered, "We need to move, now." A human's choice, he carried her away from the orphanage, keeping to the narrow streets where the drone's light couldn't reach. The town was quiet at this hour. Most shops were closed, and the air smelled of rust and rain. The girl clung to him, afraid of being left alone again. He asked softly, "Can you understand me?" She blinked and nodded slowly. "Good, listen," he said, "I'm going to help you. But you must stay with me. No running away. No looking back. Understand?" She nodded again, even faster this time. He smiled a little. Brave girl. But deep inside he felt the weight of the decision he was making. Helping a lost child was one thing. But helping a hunted child, that was something else. A stop in the market. They reached a small marketplace where only night vendors were awake. The human gently set her down and handed her a small piece of warm bread. The girl stared at it as if it were treasure. When she took her first bite, tears formed in her eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. She hadn't eaten in days. "Slow," he said softly. "You'll choke if you rush." She nodded, trying to eat carefully. As he watched her, the human felt anger rise inside him. How could anyone throw away a child like this? And why was a drone searching for her immediately after? Something didn't make sense. He looked at the glowing lines on her skin again. They pulsed gently like tiny stars. "What are you?" he whispered to himself. The girl looked up, confused by his expression. "Don't worry," he said quickly. "I won't leave you." She reached out and gently touched his hand. Her small fingers were cold. Her eyes were full of trust, pure, innocent trust. It hit him harder than any punch. She believed in him. She needed him. And at that moment, his decision became final. He would not abandon her. He would protect her, even if it meant standing against the entire orphanage. "A dangerous plan. We can't stay here," he said quietly. "They'll keep searching." He lifted her again and walked toward the edge of the town. She rested her head on his shoulder, exhausted. The human looked at the distant wall of the orphanage. Its windows burned with dim yellow light, almost watching them leave. He whispered under his breath, "I'm coming back for answers." Then he tightened his hold on the girl and disappeared into the shadows of the city without knowing that the real danger had only just begun. The human whose name was Rylan walked through the silent streets with the alien girl resting against his shoulder. The night was deep, the wind colder, but he didn't stop. Every few steps he looked behind him, checking for drones or shadows that moved in the wrong way, but nothing followed. For now, when they reached a quiet, broken-down building away from the main roads, Rylan gently placed the girl on a wooden crate. The room was small, empty, and dusty, but safe. At least for a moment, the girl looked around nervously. "Safe?" she whispered in a tiny voice. Rylan nodded. "Yes, for now." She relaxed a little, her glowing lines dimming like fading stars. But Ryland's mind was not calmed. Why did a powerful Class 4 drone appear so quickly? Why was a small child marked as a target? And worst of all, what exactly was happening inside that orphanage? He needed answers. He stood up. Stay here, I have to check something. The girl grabbed his sleeve, shaking her head in fear. Raylan knelt down. I'll be back, I promise. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. I just need to know what they're hiding. She hesitated, then slowly released his sleeve. Ryland gave her one last reassuring nod and stepped out into the night again. Returning to the orphanage, Ryland kept to the shadows as he approached the orphanage from the back. The building looked even worse than before, more like a prison than a home for children. Its metal pipes hissed with steam, and the faint smell of chemicals hung in the air. Strangely, the front area was quiet. Too quiet. He slipped through a gap in the fence and moved carefully toward the side wall. Voices drifted from an open window above him. Raylan pressed himself against the wall and listened. 2 caretakers were arguing. She escaped again. That makes 3 failures this month. Not our fault. They keep giving us unstable subjects. The director won't be happy. He wanted this one alive for testing. Her readings were stronger than the others. Ryland stiffened. Testing? Subjects? Were they talking about the girl? A cold anger burned inside him, but he forced himself to stay silent. Another voice joined the conversation, deep, commanding and cruel. The director. Find her before dawn, he ordered. She is worth more than the others. Her bioenergy levels are rare. If a civilian finds her first, everything we built here will collapse. Raylan clenched his fists in anger and shock. Bioenergy? Rare. She wasn't just an alien child. She was something special. We should alert the council. One caretaker whispered. No, the director snapped. Humans are already suspicious of our program. If word spreads that one of the experiments escaped, he didn't finish the sentence. But Rylan understood. Enough. They weren't running an orphanage. They were running experiments on children. And the girl. She was one of their test subjects. A soft metallic click sounded inside the room. Someone loading a weapon. Search the streets. The drone detected movement earlier. She cannot be far. Ryland's heart raced. They were still hunting her. He stepped away from the window, anger twisting through his chest. The girl didn't need a scientist. She didn't need a prison. She needed protection. Human protection. Is protection a discovery in the basement? As he slipped toward the back exit, something caught his eye. A metal door half open at the bottom of the building. A dull blue light flickered from inside. Curiosity and caution pulled him in. The basement smelled of chemicals and burnt metal. Strange cages lined the walls, some large, some small. Tablets and screens displayed data charts, power levels, and genetic symbols. He didn't understand, but one thing chilled him to the bone. On a table in the center of the room lay an empty glass container labeled Subject 12BIO Energy HCOST status. Dangerous age, young, removed from facility if unstable below it. A faded picture was attached. Small alien girl. The same glowing lines. The same eyes. He closed the file with shaking hands. Everything made. Except one question. Why was she dangerous? He didn't know. He only knew one thing. He had to get back to her. Now, Raylan rushed out of the orphanage's basement, his heart beating fast. The cold night air hit his face as he slipped back through the broken fence. He didn't stop moving. Every second mattered. Every second the girl was alone. She was in danger. He crossed the dark streets, taking narrow paths to avoid the drone's scanning lights. The sound of distant boots, engines, and machines told him one thing. The search had begun, and it wasn't small. By the time he reached the abandoned building where he had left the girl, He heard low voices outside, strangers speaking in hushed tones. They say she came this way. Check every building. The director wants her alive. Rylan froze behind a wall. 2 hunters wearing black armored suits scanned the area with bright blue scanners. Their visors glowed, reading heat signatures, footprints, and motion. These were not normal guards. These were trackers, and they were close. He quietly moved around to the back of the building and slipped inside through a cracked doorway. The girl sat exactly where he left her, small knees pulled to her chest. When she saw him, she rushed forward and clung to him tightly. "You came back," she whispered. "Of course," Rylan said softly. "We're leaving, now." Her glowing lines flickered nervously. She could sense the danger, too. He picked her up, but before he could step outside, a loud metallic click echoed from behind. Rylan spun around. One of the trackers stood in the doorway. "We found them," the hunter said into his communicator. He raised his weapon. "Do not run. The child belongs to the facility." Rylan's jaw tightened. "She belongs to no one." He threw himself sideways, holding the girl close as a blue energy shot blasted past them, hitting the wall and filling the room with sparks. "Run!" he whispered to her, but she was already clinging to him with desperate fear. He dashed toward the back exit. Shots fired behind him, sharp electric crackles. He felt the heat of one blast graze his shoulder. Pain burned across his skin, but he didn't stop. He shoved open the back door and burst into an alley. The girl gasped. "More!" Rylan looked up. 3 more drones hovered above the alley, red sensors glowing like hungry eyes. They had trapped them. Rylan stepped back, shielding the girl behind him. The alley was narrow, but not narrow enough to stop the drones from firing. The first drone aimed. The girl screamed and grabbed Rylan's arm. Suddenly, her glowing lines brightened, no longer soft, but blazing like tiny suns. A shockwave burst from her small body. A pulse of shimmering blue energy exploded down the alley. The drone's sensors glitched, flickered, and then went completely dark. One crashed into a wall. Another spiraled into the ground. The third fell with a heavy thud, smoke leaking from its core. Rylan stared in disbelief. The girl looked terrified of herself. I didn't mean to. I can't stop it." "It's okay," he said quickly, holding her close. "You saved us." But now he understood why the orphanage wanted her back, why they experimented on her, why they feared her. She wasn't dangerous because she hurt others. She was dangerous because she could defend herself, and they couldn't control her. Rylan heard more footsteps and shouts coming from the main road, more hunters arriving. He lifted her into his arms again. "Hold on tight." She nodded, wrapping her arms around his neck. He sprinted down the narrow alley, turning corners, climbing over broken fences, and ducking under fallen beams. The girl held on with all her strength, trusting him completely. Behind them, the search squad spread out like a dark flood. "They're getting closer," the girl whispered. Rylan smiled despite the danger. "Then we'll run faster." He didn't know where they would go next. He didn't know how long they could escape. He only knew one thing. He would not let them take her. Not now. Not ever. Rylan and the alien girl finally stopped running when they reached a quiet old storage yard on the edge of the city. Rusted containers stood like metal giants around them, blocking the wind and hiding them from hunters. The girl was breathing fast, her tiny hands gripping Rylan's coat tightly. He placed her down on a soft patch of grass beside an abandoned container. She sat there, shaking, trying to calm her glowing lines. They dimmed slowly, returning to their gentle shine. Rylan sat in front of her. "You did well," he said softly. She shook her head. "I hurt things. I didn't want to." "You protected us," he corrected her. "There's a big difference." She looked at him with wide, confused eyes, almost surprised he wasn't afraid of her. Most people she met either ignored her, feared her, or pushed her away. No one had ever spoken to her kindly. No one had ever said she did well. Rylan opened his small travel bag and pulled out a folded blanket. He placed it around her shoulders. She touched it carefully, feeling the warm fabric. Is this for me?" she asked in a tiny voice. "Yes," Rylan said. "You're cold." She looked down, hiding her face behind the blanket. It wasn't just cold, she felt. It was something new. Something she didn't understand. Kindness. She wasn't used to it. Trying to communicate, Rylan sat closer. The girl looked nervous but didn't move away. She seemed more comfortable with him now. "I need to know your name," he said gently. She hesitated, then tapped the glowing tag on her wrist. Rylan leaned closer to read the alien symbols. "It says, Leary," he said slowly. "Is that your name?" She nodded. "Leary." He smiled. "Leary, that's a beautiful name." For the first time since he found her, the girl gave a small, shy smile. It was quick, almost too small to notice, but Rylan saw it. And something inside him softened even more. He pointed to himself. "Rylan." She copied him. Lan. Their eyes met, and in that silent moment, a different kind of bond formed. Not fear, not survival. Something warm. Something strong. Trust. Sharing stories. Rylan leaned back against the container wall. "Leary, what did they do to you in that place?" She looked down, holding the blanket tightly. Her glowing lines flickered like dim lanterns. "They hurt me," she whispered. "They test. They use machines. They say I'm broken." Rylan's chest tightened. He took a deep breath so he wouldn't show anger in front of her. She already had enough fear. "You're not broken," he said firmly. "You're a child. And you didn't deserve any of that." Leary's eyes widened, unsure if she could believe such words. "No one should hurt a child," he added. She touched her glowing lines. "Humans do not fear this?" Rylan shook his head. "Humans fear many things, but we protect the weak. That's what we're supposed to do." Leary tilted her head. "Protect, like family?" Rylan paused. "Family. A simple word, a powerful one." "Yes," he said quietly. "Like family." The first laugh. Leary suddenly pointed at Rylan's hair, which was messy and full of dust from running. "And hiding your head. Looks funny," she said honestly. Rylan blinked, surprised. Then he laughed, really laughed. It was the first time he laughed since the chase began. Leary giggled too, covering her mouth with both hands. Their laughter echoed softly in the quiet yard, warm and gentle. For a moment, the fear faded. For a moment, they felt safe. Together. The danger returns, but safety was short-lived. Rylan suddenly stopped smiling, his expression turning tense. He heard a faint buzz in the distance. Drones. Many drones. He stood quickly and lifted Leary into his arms. "We need to move again." Leary held onto him tightly. "They come?" "Yes," Rylan said, pulling the blanket around her more securely. "But I'm here. I won't let them take you." She nodded against his chest, trusting him completely. And as Rylan ran into the night once more, holding Leary close, he silently swore one thing. He would protect her, even if the entire world stood against them. Rylan moved through the dark yard quickly, keeping Leary close against his chest. The buzzing sound grew louder, more drones, more hunters. The orphanage wasn't slowing down, they were intensifying their search. Leary felt his heartbeat through his coat, fast and worried. "Rylan? Danger?" She whispered. "Yes," he said, his voice calm but tense. "But I'm here. Stay close." They reached the far end of the yard where a broken metal fence opened into an old industrial district. Tall warehouses, rusty pipes, and abandoned machinery filled the landscape like a steel graveyard. Perfect for hiding or perfect for traps. "Rylan." chose the largest building, a forgotten factory with shattered windows and a wide, empty floor inside. The air smelled of oil and dust, and only a few weak lights flickered overhead. He set Leary down behind a pile of old crates. "Stay here. Don't move." She clutched his sleeve. "No, don't leave. I won't," he said gently.
"Die."
"Just need to check the exits." Leary nodded, though fear trembled in her eyes. Rylan took a few steps forward, and the large factory door suddenly slammed shut behind them. Echoing through the massive room, Rylan froze. Leary gasped, glowing. Lines flickering faster. A cold voice echoed from the shadows above. Well. The runaway child and the human who interferes." A figure stepped out from a high balcony, a tall alien wearing a dark coat, silver badges, and a cruel smile. The director. Leary's breath hitched. No. Raylan stepped in front of her, shielding her. "Stay behind me." The director looked down with sharp, hungry eyes. "You should not have taken her, human. She belongs to us." "She belongs to no one," Rylan said sharply. The director laughed. "Such human heroism, always dramatic." He snapped his fingers. Dozens of red lights appeared in the darkness. Drones. And behind them, armored hunters stepped out, weapons ready. Leary held Rylan's coat tightly. "Rylan, we run?" Rylan looked around. They were surrounded. Every exit, every doorway, every corner blocked. "No," he said quietly. "This time, we stand." The confrontation. The director raised his voice. "Give her to us, and you may walk away alive." Raylan stepped forward. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The director smirked. "With pleasure." He lifted his hand, signaling the drones. Blue lasers locked onto Rylan. Leary panicked. No, hurt Rylan." Her glowing lines brightened dangerously. The director shouted, "Do not let her activate. Fire now." Drones shot forward. Hunters pointed their weapons. Everything happened at once. Rylan grabbed Leary and dove behind a metal pillar as blue shots exploded around them. Sparks flew, metal cracked. The air burned with heat. He held Leary tightly. "You're doing great. Stay with me. I'm scared." She whispered. "I know," he said. "But you're stronger than you think." Her glowing patterns flickered. Brighter. "They hurt you. They hurt many. I don't want more hurt." Raylan cupped her face gently. "You don't have to hurt anyone. Just protect yourself." "I'll protect you." She swallowed hard. "Together," he nodded. "Together." Leary awakens. The director grew impatient. "Enough. Capture her as a force." Hunters advanced. Drones swarmed. Raylan stood up with Leary in his arms. He wasn't strong enough to fight them all. He knew that. But he stood anyway because she needed him. The moment the hunters fired, a brilliant burst of blue exploded around Leary. The factory shook as a wave of pure energy surged outward, blasting drones out of the air and hurling hunters backward. Screens cracked. Lights shattered. Metal tore from walls. Even Rylan felt the shockwave, but held her tight. Leary cried out, not in pain but in fear of her own power. "It's okay." Raylan shouted over the noise. "I'm right here." The energy spread like a glowing storm across the factory floor. When it finally faded, silence, smoke filled the air. Most drones were destroyed. Hunters lay unconscious. Only the director remained on the balcony, holding onto the railing with wide, terrified eyes. What is she?" he shouted. Rylan looked up at him, holding Leary close. "Someone you'll never touch again." Asterisk, the factory lay in ruins. Smoke curled in the air. Twisted metal glinted under the faint moonlight, and the ground was littered with sparks from destroyed drones. Raylan held Leary tightly, feeling the warmth of her small body against his chest. Her glowing lines had dimmed to a soft, gentle light. For the first time since he had found her, she looked calm. Rylan looked around. The director and his hunters were gone, or at least unconscious, and the factory was quiet. The danger that had haunted them for days seemed distant. But Rylan knew it wasn't completely gone. The orphanage still existed. There were still people who wanted her captured. Still people who feared what she was capable of. But right now, she was safe. He carefully lowered Leary to the ground. She touched her glowing lines, as if trying to understand herself after the surge of power. Her small hands trembled. Rylan, did I break them? You didn't break anyone, he said gently. You saved yourself, and me. Leary's eyes met his, wide and honest, searching for reassurance. She had never experienced this before. Someone who protected her without question, who valued her life, not her powers, not what she could do for them. Just her. Rylan knelt in front of her. Leary, from now on, no one can hurt you. You have me. And we will make sure no one else can hurt you either. Tears glistened in her eyes. She had never felt hope, never felt belonging. But now, the warmth of it surrounded her like a shield stronger than any drone or hunter could ever be. Leaving the shadows behind, the two of them left the ruined factory, careful but steady. Rylan carried Leary to the edge of the city, where the lights faded, into the quiet forest. The trees swayed gently in the night, almost as if welcoming them. The air smelled fresh, free from the smoke and chemicals of the orphanage. This place, it's safe? Leary asked, looking around with wonder. Rylan said, smiling. Safe enough to start over, safe enough for you to be yourself. Leary tilted her head, glowing lines faintly flickering. She didn't fully understand the human world yet. She didn't know why they were kind, why they protected the weak, why they cared. But she wanted to learn. She wanted to trust. Rylan held out his hand. Come on. Let's find a place where you can be a child. Where you can laugh, play, be happy. She took his hand without hesitation. The moment was quiet, but powerful. The human and the alien child, side by side, stepping into a future no one could take from them. The first morning, when dawn broke, the sky painted with pink and gold, Leary sat beside Rylan. The stars in her arms seemed to sparkle brighter in the sunlight. She smiled, a real, wide, joyful smile. Rylan watched her, feeling a strange mix of relief and pride. See? You're stronger than you think, and we'll face whatever comes together. Leary nodded. Together, she echoed, repeating the word as if it were a spell. She had learned it was more than a word, it was a promise. Rylan knew the journey was not completely over. There would be challenges. There would be people who feared or misunderstood her. But they had something the orphanage never had. Trust, courage, and the bond of family. A new family. The human and the alien girl walked forward, leaving behind the city's shadows. Step by step, they moved toward a new life, a life filled with hope and safety. She would never be alone again. She would never be just an experiment or a target. She was Leary, an alien child with powers, a story, and a family now. And Rylan knew deep inside that this was what being human really meant. To protect, to love, to rise above fear, and to make the galaxy better, not through control or power, but through kindness. Together, they disappeared into the horizon, two souls bound by trust, hope, and the promise of a new beginning. The orphanage, the hunters, the drones, they were behind them now. The future was theirs, and this time, they would choose it.